Greetings and salutations one and all. How you doing? Welcome to the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew Real Talk. That's what we're doing tonight, and we have a special edition tonight. And I do invite you to call a friend, tell a friend, call a friend of a friend, friend of an enemy, enemy of a friend. Call your enemies, call everybody. Share. Let them know it's real talk. Closing out the night shift week. Kicking it off with Super Blue, a track called Stranger Things. Well, actually, Strange Things.
On the road, stranger things. On the road, strange things. On the road, jab and bling. On the road, strange things. On the road, stranger things. On the road, strange things. On the road, wine and bling. 2020. On the road, carnival crazy. On the road, my section ready. On the road, bling and party. On the road, culturally. On the road, everybody. On the road, come on the road, come on the road, come on the road and see. Come in the breakdown, Savannah Stadium. All of you go breakdown. Everything was break. Why not celebrate? Carnival is great. Why not love it break. Don't. The party must start. Take a wine and get me a hat. All the cricket must stop and rain start falling. Every job that is a hero. It's a little bit to be good. Time to show the world that you representing. 20,000 who just don't come in. Dirty wine don't give me money. I want you to witness. Oh, we mashing up and we trashing up and we taking over the stage. It's strange things on the road, stranger things on the road, strange things on the road, jab and bling on the road, strange things on the road, stranger things on the road, strange things on the road, wine and bling. Like a jab that dancer on the road, rifle over on the road, wine and back on the road, over and look back. Everybody, bossy wine, bossy wine, bossy wine, bossy wine. Right there. Come here to break down, Savannah Stadium. All of you go break down. Everything must break. Why not celebrate? Carnival is great. Why not love it break. Down. My band is gonna be here. Aye, that you ain't gonna clear. Oh, recognition is long overdue. So comfortably is jam. It's a whistle and biscuit plan. Anywhere that I say the job coming. Breakfast party or all inclusive. This year is my prerogative. Yeah, you for the job that was said. Right now, we mashing up and we trashing up and we taking over the stage. Strange things on the road, stranger things on the road, strange things on the road, jab and bling on the road, strange things on the road, stranger things on the road, strange things on the road, wine and bling. Jab that pussy on the road, we jab that pussy on the road, jab that pussy on the road, I jab that pussy on the road, pussy wine, pussy wine, pussy wine, pussy wine, right there. Come here to break down, Savannah Stadium.
Super Blue says, listen, it's Strange Things.
Savannah Stadium. All of you
I want to officially welcome y'all to the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew Real Talk night.
carnival is great.
I want to say big ups to all the affiliates around the globe. I wanted to know that I truly appreciate love each and every one of you. Those that are locked in on TuneIn Radio, the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew, welcome. Big ups to those on NIE Radio out of New Jersey. Big ups to those on the Foundation Radio Network, ClintonLindsay.com. If you're locked in on PEMGTV.com, welcome. Those on Facebook Live, much love to you. It's a segment simulcast, you know. So use the link that is pinned in the comment section, kevinstew.com. And on that note, I want to say welcome to those who are on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment. So glad to have each and every one of you. I couldn't do it without you. And I give you my word, I wouldn't even try. I want to take a moment to recognize my segment sponsors. Because as I go through this broadcast tonight, I don't know how much time I'll be recognizing them. So let me recognize all of them right now. First of all, thank you to Pulse Media Group. When being in the moment is priceless, give them a call for innovative streaming and recording solutions. Call them on 754-999-1140. That's 754-999-1140. Don't mind the number you see right there. It will be changed. You can check them out at paulcmg.com. They can do everything you see right here on kevinstew.com and more. They have a church service, a wedding, a funeral, a seminar. Something you want to stream live on a secure platform, your own preferably. They can hook you up. Tell them you heard about them on the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. I want to say thank you to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands. Althea is a licensed massage therapist operating out of Broad County, North Miami-Dade and South Palm Beach counties. She comes to you bringing her table, her oils, and over 20 years of massage therapy experience. She's also a personal trainer. So you got the hookup right there. You know, you get your workout and you can have someone to soothe your muscles right there. Now, mind you, the two won't happen simultaneously or even on the same day, but you can get them happening. Give her a call, 954-655-9000. That's 954-655-9000. Or email her at thealater@att.net. That's thealater@att.net. Outside of paying her, she only requests that you get her for a table and go sleep somewhere else. I want to say thank you to Reggae Global Entertainment. Reggae Global Entertainment will act as your booking agents, take care of your tour management, handle your legal contracts, your trademarks, publishing, business registration, legal service referrals, music production, marketing and promotion, and so much more. Give them a call, 954-804-8199. Tell them DJ Kevin Stew sent you. Or you can check them out online, reggaeglobalentertainment.com. Also want to say thank you to McNeil Trucking. With McNeil Trucking, you're in good hands for all your moving needs. Call them up, 954-406-9740. That's McNeil Trucking. Alright, as I get some people lined up here. Okay, so I got some people on the line. I got some people lined up. Welcome. Okay, I got some noise coming in from somewhere. Where is this noise coming from? Let me see. Strange noise is coming in. Let me just see if I can mute some of these noises. Alright. Because let me see if it's gone. Okay. I think it's gone. So many noises coming in from so many places. All right, there's noise coming in from this right here. I have a couple of people on the line. David, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Nozey, are you there? Did I hear someone say we are all here?
We are both here. Can you hear us? We're both here.
That's Nozey and Josie and David. Boy, are we in for a treat tonight.
Oh, yes, we are.
I want to thank you.
David.
Thank you guys for calling in. Good evening, Nozey. Good evening, Josie. Good evening, David. Welcome, welcome back to the Night Shift to DJ Kevin Stew, a special edition of Real Talk here tonight. And tonight we get to review the evidentiary hearing of this brand new hearing right here happening right now in Bastrop County for Rodney Reed with regards to the murder of Stacey Stites. And these three individuals that I have on the line right now are some people that have been advocating for Rodney Reed long before I started even talking about, long before I learned who Rodney Reed was. And for that, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you off the bat. David, before we get into the hearing matters, people have called you crazy, people have called you a fake, people have called you everything but for dinner.
I love that.
Just
and so true.
yeah. For some reason, people don't like you much. But to give people an understanding of who David Fisher is, how did you get involved in, and you don't even have to get deep into it. What was it that brought you to looking into cases in courtrooms, not being a lawyer?
Well, I learned the law in representing myself in an oil and gas matter, but in a contract dispute I had with one of the, what do they call, the seven sisters, the seven major oil companies,
right,
back in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I learned the law. I had to represent myself. After that, I started doing civil law consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And I then moved to Bastrop, and by happenstance ran into a reporter with the Smithville Times, which is one of the three cities of Bastrop.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me about my background. I did some consulting for the Postal Police on their insurance fraud. I did an arson case for the DA's office in Houston. And she asked me if I would look at the Rodney Reed case, their
right,
files, and tell them who I thought had killed Stacey Stites, Rodney or Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Knew nothing about the case, and so I just reviewed the files. What I found profoundly disturbed me.
Right.
And it was off to the races.
So that got you involved.
And the end of my dinner invitation.
No dinner invitations after that point.
No dinner invitations after that.
All right. So the ladies, the roses among the thorns, with us tonight, Nozey and Josie. You two have also been called all kinds of names.
And I don't give a damn. I call people names just as good as they try to call me names.
My favorite response is always, I've been called much worse by much better. So.
Much better people. Yes.
Yeah, they come up with names aren't even funny. They don't even sting. I don't feel offense for that. I come up with way better names. So I can go tit for tat
So,
all day if they want.
what was it that got you ladies involved in the fight for Rodney's innocence?
I'll go first. Okay. Okay, with me, I found out about the case watching Dead Again when I was at work one day. It was when they still had it on Hulu.
Right.
And I ran across the case, and then I was really paying attention to the episode, and I was like, and then I saw that they didn't search the apartment, and then they gave the truck back to Jimmy. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Right.
And then so like after I watched the show, there weren't really many updates on it, so I had started looking on Facebook about it, and then I really got involved leading up to this 2019 execution date. So that's when I really started involved.
Right. And you, Nozey? Living up to your name?
Well, yes, my name very much is a huge part of why I am here today. For Rodney, it all just other cases on the Twitter community. I started with the Stephen Avery case from Netflix and Brendan Dassey, and then I started following Rodney's case around the same time I started following Daniel Holtzclaw. And it was due to the Free Rodney Reed Twitter account started tweeting out, just like documents, and there were facts and, just information coming out.
Well, this is day 5 of convicted murderer Rodney Reed's appeal hearing, and the prosecution started calling witnesses today.
Sorry.
The death row inmate wants a
I'm
new
so
trial.
sorry, Nozey. That just popped in. I'm sorry, that just popped up for some reason. But go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, no, I was just saying, so yeah, I just became more and more curious about it, and then as I started diving into it, was right about the time, or it was a little before the time where he got the stay of execution and all that stuff. So the hype wasn't really in the media just yet, but it was getting there.
Yeah.
But I realized there were just some huge issues that made absolutely no sense in the case, and so from there I couldn't stop looking at everything.
Right. So we, outside of David, we three probably got involved with looking at the Reed case around about 2019. Because that was when I first started looking into it myself, when I heard David on WGLRO with Donnie Walker. And it was at that point Donnie introduced us, and the rest is history. We've been going back and forth. He's been sharing information with me ever since, and I've been sharing them with everyone else. Hey, Joy. Joy is joining us on Facebook Live in the comments section.
Hey, Joy.
Joy, you know my number. You can call in at any time. So, Joy says I started in 1989. Joy, you don't play fair.
We already know. We already know.
Joy doesn't play fair. But so we've been following what has been happening in this hearing, and I just wanted to go ahead and mention a little bit of how we all got involved. Now, within the last few months, I've had some interactions with some rather interesting and colorful characters, and the interactions that I have had with them, I must say, I've had a whole lot less patience than you and Nozey and Josie. You two.
That's why I'm just mean to them right off the bat.
I don't know.
No time.
You guys are amazing. I can't keep going back and forth with them about anything, especially after being shared information like what David has shared with me. I'm looking at documents. Hard. They're right there in black and white. It's not like it's an opinion. I'm looking at actual documents. Opinions can be formed.
You mean you're not reading old transcripts and making that a fact?
Okay. When the question is asked for something like lab results and you end up presenting court transcripts, that's not a lab result.
Yeah, that's what Lisa O'Lion did. She made a Facebook page. I think it's called Rodney Reed Documents or something like that.
That's
and I
crazy.
saw it like yesterday or last night. And then one of the titles, Rodney Reed 12-year-old rape case,
Yes.
lab report. And then I looked at it, and it wasn't a lab report. It was court transcripts.
Right.
I said, that's not a damn lab report. What the hell?
Someone actually said to me
Same thing.
that Lisa O'Brien, aka Hypo O'Lion, Josie.
Hippo means hypocrite, O'Lion.
Oh, hippo for hypocrite.
Yeah, hippo.
Oh, I thought it was for hippopotamus. I'm sorry.
Me too.
She looked like one.
You see, I didn't say that. David, call off your friends.
I did. I said it. That's my
Hey,
tagline.
hey, whenever the hammers are flying, I duck.
Shots fired.
And it's funny.
Shots fired. Just call it that.
I'm saying David, call off your friends, and I introduced David to you ladies. So, you know, David, call off my friends.
Really.
So,
Hey, Kevin, I do have a little comment on something that was said at the hearing today that I saw that posted on Twitter, on the Twitter update.
okay, hold that comment.
So you
Hold,
remember when
wait,
you said
Josie.
that-
Hold that comment. Here's why I want you to
Okay.
hold that comment. Because I want to
Okay.
go from last Monday, and for those that have not been following, just kind of just bring it forward and look at some of the things that we've heard, some of the things that have been presented. And I really want to start with day one. And
Okay.
for anyone listening in that wants to follow along, I am looking at ABC's kview.com website, and their, what you want to call it, overview of the case. Joy says, yes,
Is it by Jenny Lee?
yes, that would be Jenny Lee.
I will follow the KXAN site instead because Avery and Melody have been doing the best updates in my opinion.
Okay, not a problem. But I'm just using this one to raise points, and we can address them really quickly. Joy says, I try to be nice and reasonable until they start that name calling. It's interesting that Joie Monfort was not called as a witness or even a rebuttal witness in this whole
But I
case.
think Joy can explain that why she can be called as a rebuttal witness. But
Yeah.
you'll see.
So
She can explain it.
day one. It was an explosive start on day one of the Reed's appeals hearing. It began with opening statements from the defense, blah 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 blah. Defense maintains that Jimmy Fennell, Stites' fiance at the time, is her killer. Alright, so 11:20 the defense calls Andrew Baker, and this is the first week where the defense was calling the shots. They're calling their witnesses. And the defense calls Andrew Baker off the bat. Now, last Monday night, we had Heather Campbell Stubbs, one of Stacey Stites' cousins, on with us, reviewing this first day. So we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this first day. But, ladies, you weren't there with us. David and I, we got to peel away at this along with Heather. Let me get your feedback on Andrew Baker, Josie and Nozey.
I was always on that Monday. Remember?
Oh, yes, you were. Yes.
Yeah, I was.
Yes, you were with us too. You were a little bit quiet though, but you were with us. Nozey, I didn't hear from you about outside of some comments from our group chat, but share with us.
I mean, regarding Dr. Baker, I didn't
Yes.
really have... I was tweeting pretty much between 4 reporters, like every single thing they were tweeting about every single witness, and oh my God, day one was like 1,000 tweets ago. But Dr. Baker, I didn't really feel like, I mean, I feel like he may have, like, you know, just coincided with the defense. I don't think that he did anything, like, supreme or anything fantastic for the defense other than just agree with, you know, former experts like Batten and whatever. What's the other one's name?
Riddick and
Fix and Reddit.
Right. And so, I mean, outside of agreeing with them, that's pretty much, I didn't have a lot to say to Baker. I think there were some things that we were discussing behind the scenes that we wanted them to ask, regarding against what Bayardo said. And I think there were more questions missed than like what we got as far as like, you know, the tally mark for the win. When it comes to Baker.
Mm. When Fletcher came up, Wayne Fletcher, former Bastrop County jailer, what were your thoughts? Nozey?
I'd have to go back and look at my tweets.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head with Fletcher. The main ones that stick out.
Let me add in while Josie, while y'all look at your tweets and catch up. Fletcher's testimony was there were 2 or 3 really profound witnesses, and these are the witnesses that the Court of Criminal Appeals had to have dealt with because they're law enforcement, ex-law enforcement, and anytime law enforcement is privy to evidence of any sort, they're required by law to disseminate it. Right. And so Fletcher didn't tell anybody about this other than, you know, Stacy's sister.
Yeah, saying that he lied, right?
Yeah, his wife was brought on as a rebuttal witness today. His ex-wife.
Really?
All right, I'm almost there. But y'all can move on. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Okay, so when Fletcher was told by Fennell, as he said in his affidavit, that Stacy was, you know, sleeping with Rodney or a black man, then that is, you know, exculpable. That's information that he is required by law to disclose, and he didn't. Now, this is the interesting exchange because they asked him why he didn't, and he said because he was afraid. Right. And that got the attention of Judge Langley. That perked him up. Mm-hmm. And he wanted the defense to ask why he was afraid. Mm-hmm. And he kind of let them know. Now, it doesn't take much, you know, knowledge of the case to know about 2 other police officers that got crosswise in this case. A Giddings police officer by the name of Joe Bryant, who ended up dead in October of '96, who was investigating Jimmy Fennell on his own as the killer of Stacy Stites. And then Ed Samala, the original detective in the case, who died August 3rd of an alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound that was inflicted by his service revolver chrome .45 caliber pistol with pearl handles. The problem is he didn't have it.
Right.
He surrendered it and his shotgun and his billy club to David Board at the Bastrop Police Department the day before.
Right.
You see, they had indicted Ed for domestic violence, terroristic threats to his ex-girlfriend.
Yes.
And in April of '96, the federal anti-terrorism law went into effect that required anybody, you know, accused of domestic violence or terroristic threats to surrender their guns. And Ed was indicted, so he had to do it, and he did. And then, interestingly enough, 24 hours later, he allegedly commits suicide with a gun he doesn't have.
Right.
Hey, Jimmy was on the stand on the first day on the 19th, right?
No, he wasn't. He was called to the stand.
Why are they tweeting out that he's on the stand on the 19th? Defense calls Jimmy Fennell the victim's fiance July 19th.
Nah.
No, that's you tweeting.
No. Look, it says right there.
No.
July 19th, 2021.
Well, they mentioned Jimmy Fennell in these tweets when they're talking to Fletcher.
Yes.
Well, this one says Avery Travis tweeted at 9:46 a.m. on July 19th, 2021. Defense calls Jimmy Fennell.
Nah, I didn't
No,
see any of that happening.
It says here, let's see, the defense third witness said Jimmy Fennell worked for security. You see, the first witnesses were the police officers, the lady who sold insurance.
Right.
Okay, what the heck is wrong with my Twitter? Maybe it's just glitching.
Maybe.
It's Lisa O'Brien.
reading. Carol Baskin.
If anything goes wrong, blame it on Lisa. The ones whose name we should not say.
Well, you could blame it on
That's
any
so
of the
weird.
Lisas.
I'm going to have to close it out and go back to it. Anyways, that was throwing me off. Sorry, I just had to double check that.
Okay, not a problem.
Can I ask about one of the tweets from the day, though?
Sorry, what was that, Josie?
You say you're going in order. Never mind. This one can wait, though.
Okay. I'm just
It's
kind of...
about something from the day.
Yeah, I'm just kind of just brushing over the defense before we look at the prosecution. And then we can kind of bounce between them. Yeah, David, Wayne Fletcher talking about what happened and why he was afraid, especially with Ed killing himself with a gun that was turned in, using his offhand, which his brother, I spoke with his brother, Scott, who tells me he can't do jack with his offhand. So
Right,
the mere
with his
fact...
left hand, right.
Right. He's right-handed. And he allegedly killed himself by shooting himself on the left side. He had to have used his left hand. And they took the couch out. Scott was the one that cleaned up the apartment. They took the couch out, stating that they didn't want him to be seeing that kind of mess when he was cleaning up everything else. That was kind of crazy to me. In addition to that, being told by the neighbor, well, he spoke with Ed before he went in and allegedly killed himself.
Just minutes.
And when he tried the door was locked. He went and called the cops and came back, and there was a cop standing inside and the door unlocked, not kicked in or anything.
It wasn't just any cop. It was Texas Ranger Rocky Wardlow.
That too.
Well, that's not just a that too. That's a uh-oh.
Which is a big deal.
Yes, it was, because Rocky Wardlow handled the investigation into Ed's death, but he didn't tell his supervisors that he was Ed's roommate, sleeping on that couch in that one-bedroom apartment up until 2 weeks before the death. So Rocky Wardlow had a key to Ed's apartment, and that was the point that the neighbor was making, is that when he heard the gunshot, he's just next door. He runs over and pounds on Ed's door and checks the door, and it's locked. And he didn't get a response, so he runs back, calls 911, then runs back, and the door's open, and Rocky Wardlow's standing in the door, and the door's not kicked in.
Right.
So it was open with a key.
Yep.
And now it gets worse. Rocky Wardlow testified that he was in Austin visiting his sister more than 30 miles away when Ed committed suicide.
Hold on, David. Hold on. Okay. Cool. Just bringing Joy in on this call. Go ahead, David. Finish your point, and then we'll have Joy in.
So Wardlow said that, he was in Austin when he got the call.
Yes.
And had to drive to Bastrop. And that's why he didn't do gunpowder hand wipes on Ed right after the shooting, because he was in his private car, and his gunpowder kit is in his patrol car.
And the police station is 2.5 minutes away. Come on now.
Well, it's a little different than that. When I came into this thing, now that happened in 96. I came into this thing in 2001. And so what I did, because I've been doing this for a long, long time, and at the time of the shooting in '96, police officers, Texas Rangers, their phone numbers are in the phone book.
Oh, really?
With their home addresses, absolutely.
Oh,
and so,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, so I just put out a call to the church ladies, the older church ladies that never throw anything away.
Yes.
Asking them if they had any 1996 Bastrop phone books, and I got several. And so I looked Rocky Wardlow up. He moved 2 blocks down the street from Ed, so he could have walked.
Listen.
In 5 minutes to his patrol car, gotten his gunpowder hand wipe kits, and come back.
I didn't even know that bit of information. Thank you for that. That's good information. Joy.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Welcome back.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm praying. I'm doing I'm doing a lot of praying.
I got you.
I just I worry every day that somebody is not going to hear the main thing they need to hear, and that is that Rodney's not guilty.
Right.
David has pretty much taken everything that they needed to prove this, wrapped it up in shiny paper, topped it with a sparkly bow, and handed it to them. So if they fail him this time, then we have nobody to blame but his attorneys. And I hate to say that, but that is the way I feel.
I agree.
They call me, they tell me to be prepared in case they need me as a rebuttal witness. They call me, they tell me to be prepared, that I'll probably be getting a phone call. And I sit by my phone and I carry it with me everywhere. I take it to the bathroom with me just in case.
Right.
And nothing. I hear nothing. And the sad part about it is I am one of the only people other than his blood relatives that can state exactly where he was, when he left our home, when he got to Wichita Falls, the night of my friend's rape.
Now, Joy, it's important that people get an understanding of what you just said. You are one of the few people that can actually state when it was. Hey, Colleen, when it was that Rodney left Bastrop and went back to Wichita
in 1989. For people who don't know the story, 1989.
Right.
And see, this is one of the biggest things that they're using to try to keep him in there, is this, rape of a 12-year-old girl. Well, it's really difficult to rape someone when you're 5.5 hours away from them and checked in. I want to say it was 3.5, 4 hours prior to her rape. And the drive.
Yeah, he was already back in Wichita Falls.
Yeah, and the drive is 5.5, 6 hours. So if he's checking in between 3.5, 4 hours prior to her rape, tell me, unless he knows somebody with a helicopter that we don't know, or a private plane that we don't know, that could have gotten him back really, really fast, there's no way he could have turned around and made that drive back to Bastrop, raped her, and then made it back to Wichita Falls.
You know, one of the questions that I have with regards to the rape of the 12-year-old girl, when you have information like this, how is it that it has not been presented? Because this is documented information. He had to let Bastrop know when he was leaving. Well, he had to let Bastrop know when he got there when he was leaving,
The only reason
and
they
Wichita
knew
Falls.
he was there, the only reason they even knew he was there is because he had to let them know when he arrived. That's the only
Right.
reason. And guess who he let know? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.
David Ward.
Yes, sir.
So,
And of course, Ed Solomon knew, but Ed Solomon's
Ed
no longer
Sullivan
with us.
knew because Ed Sullivan knew because he was in the office at the same time when Rodney walked in to check in. Because I remember, I remember, you know, the more I have talked about this case, and David, I'm going to give you a ton of credit right now. David said, how can you remember something from 20 years ago? Well, here's how you do it. You write it down.
yep.
And you let it sit. You go to bed. You get up the next morning and you reread it. And as you're reading it, you're, oh, you know what? I missed this. I missed this. I missed this detail. I missed this detail. And the more I've talked about it over the past few years, the more I'm remembering and the more clearly things are coming to me. And I remember as if it was yesterday. He walked into the house, and when you first walk into Ron's dad's house, there's a chair that was, 2 chairs actually, that was immediately to your right. And Daddy always sat in the far left chair. And I always sat on the corner closest of the couch, closest to him, because he would constantly tease me, and I would constantly tease him concerning the football game that was on TV. But we were sitting there, and he walks in, and Rodney says, "Hey, Ugg, how's it going?" And Daddy goes, "Well, hey, Bubba, how you been? It's been a while since we've seen you around these parts." And he goes, yeah. He goes, "And of all people who I have to talk to when I first come to town, but David Board." And that's how I knew that's who he checked in with. And it's like when he was leaving, same 2 police officers. Actually, there was a third one. Richard Hernandez was also in the office when Rodney went to go check out to let them know he was leaving. You know, and Richard Hernandez, he was infamous for just randomly stopping young black men and asking them for their identification, handing it back to them, and then walking away without telling them why. And me being me, I walked right on up to his patrol car because his window was rolled down and he was stopped at a stoplight. And I asked him what his badge number was. "What's your badge number and your full name?" And he looked at me, and the light. He gave me his name. He gave me his badge number. The light turns green. He flies around the corner and cuts us off at the driveway at the movie theater because we just had to walk across the street and then into the movie theater, but we had to cross the driveway to get there. He cuts us off at the driveway, and he's like, "Oh, you don't understand." I said, "Let me guess. Fit the description of someone you're looking for?"
You were walking with a black man.
I was walking with Rodney's cousin, Ron. And this was right when he and I had started dating. And what he didn't know until I said something was that I heard what he told the woman in the car laughing when I walked up to the car. And that was, I can make them dance like that all day, every day.
Right.
You know? So, I mean, these guys knew that Rodney was in town. They knew when he was there. They knew when he got there. They knew when he left.
And they knew he was a suspect in a rape case in Wichita Falls.
Because he had to disclose that information.
Of a white woman. And for David Board and Hernandez, that was unacceptable. See, Richard Hernandez got his start as a police officer in Elgin. And it was just as bad as his tenure in Bastrop. There was nothing he wouldn't do for money. In fact, the rumors are he was removed in Elgin because in a car wreck, he removed the driver who was intoxicated and put the passenger who was killed in the accident in the driver's seat.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm serious.
Wow.
In order to protect the driver, and of course the driver would be charged with, criminal negligent homicide.
That's insane.
And this is what he would do.
Wow.
And so, it didn't surprise me anything, I saw in Bastrop.
I'm not going to tell y'all his name because he's my family.
Yeah.
But my cousin, Richard Hernandez, was going to bust my cousin. This was when crack was real big, and my cousin was selling crack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that everybody should run out and do that now. What he was doing was wrong. But nevertheless, Richard had busted him.
Right.
Well, my cousin also had a huge wad of cash on him.
Yeah, the cash didn't get turned in.
My cousin didn't get turned in because told my cousin if he gave him the cash, he'd let him walk. So my cousin handed over the wad of cash, got in his car, and drove away.
Just
and
like
this
that.
was Richard Hernandez's history, all the way through as sheriff, and ultimately ended his career as sheriff because he was caught using prison labor to make barbecue pits, and then he would sell the barbecue pits and pocket the money. He would use county resources and materials to build the barbecue pits. He even had them, and this is kind of gives you an idea of the mentality here. He had the prisoners take his riding lawnmower and sheet metal and create a body that matched the General Lee and the Duke of Hazzard's.
Are you serious?
And that was his riding lawnmower to mow his front yard.
I'm not going to lie,
Now,
that's kind of sweet.
well, it's interesting.
Right, Nozey.
Because when Richard Hernandez got busted by the feds, we had a gambling parlor. Richard Hernandez was protecting the gambling parlor for a take of the money. It went on for a long time. Got a lot of money.
So,
but when they finally arrested Richard,
yes,
then they had to auction off all the things he had, the barbecue pits, the General Lee riding lawnmower. And I poked at the DA for some time, asking him, I said, when is the General Lee going to come up for auction? I said, I want to bid on it. I want to buy it because, when we have the parades, downtown, I want to put a mannequin of Richard Hernandez and drive that thing through downtown.
You're wrong.
So nobody forgets. Well, needless to say, the General Lee disappeared and never came up for auction.
Not surprising in Bastrop. And, this just...
Not surprising.
This is really to give people an idea of what Bastrop is like. Joie Monfort is on the line right now. Joy lived in Bastrop. Joy was, at the time, the best friend of the 12-year-old that got raped, who they are claiming Rodney did it. This is one of the reasons why Joy has some of the information she has. Joy was also dating one of Rodney's cousins. This is probably one of the reasons why. What was the excuse you got from the attorneys, Joy? You're too close to the family?
That my testimony, first it was my testimony would be biased because of my relationship with the Reed family. Because the Reed family raised me from the age of 15.
Right.
Then it was because I couldn't remember specifically when my conversation with Stacy on the phone was and when exactly I saw her at Miss K's. I couldn't remember the months or the time frame.
Yes.
That I would not be credible.
And yet they put on.
So you're not credible. But Carol, Deborah, and Crystal are credible.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's right there. That's right there.
But here's the thing. My story of me seeing them at Miss K's is almost the same as Miss K's story of them coming in together. I just happened to be standing in the kitchen. We were not, Miss K ran two businesses out of that house. for bail bonds, which is the reason Rodney was there, and a catering business, which is the reason I was there. I was standing at the kitchen table making ham rolls. He had this thing about doing ham rolls and sticking them with toothpicks to a head of cabbage, which is what I was in the process of doing. And I heard his voice, and I looked up, and I was like, "Hey, Rodney, how's it going?" And him and Stacy were standing there together, holding hands. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I don't just feel running up holding just anybody's hand and standing close to them, giggling and stuff when they're talking. I mean, I don't make it a habit. Even when I was a kid, I didn't make that a habit.
Right.
And I was like, "Hey, Rodney, what's up?" And he turns around, he's like, "Hey, girl." Because he knew I was the mouse of the South, and I tell everybody everything. I didn't care. And he came over to Ron's parents' house, and he said, "Hey." And I was like, "Hey." I was like, "Who's that girl?" He was like, "She's cute." Now, I already knew her name was Stacy because when she turned around, she had her HEB uniform on. And when she turned around, she still had her name tag on. And he goes, "Yeah, that's why I want to talk to you for a minute." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "You didn't see me with anybody." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "No, you didn't." And I was like, okay. He goes, "No, you don't understand. She got a man, and her man could be kind of dangerous to my health if he finds out." And I was like, "Oh, dangerous to your health?" And I'm looking at him all confused, like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, he has a badge and a gun." And I was like, "You stupid." That was the first thing out of my mouth. "You stupid." And he goes, "No, but seriously?" He's like, "Girl, this got to be like on the down low. And I was like, "Okay, no problem." He goes, "Seriously, don't say nothing." And I'm like, "I won't, I promise." He goes, Don't make me come back here." I was like, "Rodney, you threatening me?" He goes, "I'm just kidding." But he goes, "But you know what I'm saying." I'm like, "I know what you're saying." He goes, "All right." He goes, "Seriously." He goes, "Don't say nothing." I said, "I won't." And it was a couple weeks later, I was back in town, and he was on the phone at Little Long's. And he said to me, "Hey, talk to my girl. I'm going to run inside and get something to drink. I'll be right back." And I'm like, "Okay." And then he starts laughing. I don't know what she said to him on the phone, but he started laughing. He goes, No, y'all have plenty in common. She white too." And handed me the phone. Didn't tell me her name, just handed me the phone. She's the one that told me her name was Stacy. So, I mean, and it was a brief conversation. She wanted to know Rodney's middle name. That was the whole conversation. And so I started cracking a joke about how all of the boys had the same initials, RRR, and all of them had the same middle name. All of them. Rodney Rodell Reed, Roger Rodell Reed, Robert Rodell Reed, all of them. Rodell is their middle name. And she goes, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious." She goes, "Oh." And I was like, she had a lot of boys. I talked about Ed Center. I was like, she had a lot of boys.
So you never call them by their middle name.
Right.
No. It's like, I said, she wasn't fooling around. She's just like, I'm done. I'm tired. It's just, I had too many, no. Rodell. But instead, no, Rodell. Just Rodell. So,
Right.
They all had the same middle and last name. And so they were all three, their initials were all RRR.
Yes.
And Uncle Walter, he, God rest him, I love this man. He stood as strong as he could for as long as he could. And it's breaking my heart that when all of this finally comes out in the wash and Rodney is able to walk out of those doors, he's not going to be around to see it. Not physically, anyway.
And
Yeah. Now, Joy, there's a little interesting stuff we need to address here. As you said, they called you, told you to be on standby, and then never called you back. No courtesy, no nothing.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Remember 3 weeks ago, on a Monday, we had the conversation, and you were on. Kevin, remember? And you said, "Well, they're not calling me." And I said, "Not so fast." I said, "They can still call you as a rebuttal witness.
Right.
Should the rapes come up. rebuttal witnesses you don't have to put on the list because you can't anticipate who, if you're going to need a rebuttal witness until the testimony is entered. So rebuttal witnesses don't have to be on the sheet. And somebody on the defense, one of the attorneys on the defense, was listening, probably listening tonight too, and texted you.
Yep.
But did he tend to try to mess up your?
Yeah, he tried to switch my story, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
So
and I corrected him.
The defense tried to change your story.
Huh?
The defense was telling you to change your story.
No. They weren't telling me to change my story. The way that he phrased his question was trying to trip me up, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. That's not what I said. Here's what
he was trying to destroy her testimony.
Yeah, he was trying to
by inserting. See, he's using texts. If you had been not on your guard and just said, "Oh, you know the truth," and just ignored that, see, he could have used that with the rest of the attorneys. Say, she's not a credible witness.
Right.
And it's my belief that that's what he was doing. Why do I say that? Because I've known this guy for 18 years, and I've seen him do it 100 times.
And you don't trust him.
And the thing about
I don't trust him at all.
The only thing that has ever changed about my story is me remembering other little details.
Yeah.
That I was like, wait a minute, you know what? That's right. That's right. And it would come to me, and I'm like, and I've written it down.
According to the state's witness,
yeah, I know. Tell me it isn't true. You just destroyed that lady's.
Yeah, because you're white, your memory is going to be a little befuddled, okay? Because you're white.
Yes, if it's dealing with a black person. If it's dealing with a person of color, your memories are going to be affected. Yeah.
I can't.
He basically said, in a nutshell, if you're white, you can't remember shit because all black people look alike, is what she said.
But if the other person is white, then you will remember something. That's literally what she said.
In essence, that's what she was saying.
Who said that?
This is the memory witness. Remember?
Yes.
Kevin?
Like, this is the reach
the
that
memory
Lisa
witness
Tanner is going
that went on and on and on and on.
Check it out. Check this out. Check this out.
Yeah.
And I can debunk that right now. Now here's what they do. There's a test that they run, and what they do is they show you something, and then they show it to you rather quickly, and then they take it away, and then they want you to kind of remember as much detail as you can about what they show you.
Right.
I worked at a convenience store, and when I was living in Kyle, I worked right there at the Pack and Sack. And this man came in, and he was extremely intoxicated, and I would not sell him beer. In fact, I refused to sell him beer because of how intoxicated he was. And told him maybe you should call someone to come get you. Well, he cursed me out, walked outside, then tried to get somebody else to come in and buy him beer. And I walked out the door, and I said, I won't sell them any beer for you either. And I walked back inside. Well, when I walked back inside, I called 911, and I let them know that there was an intoxicated driver leaving my store at the time. He drove 1.5 miles down the road and ran head-on into another vehicle. Now, when the police came to my shop, 2 hours later, they asked me for a description of the man that I had called in. And I gave it to them, nailed the description and his age and the car he was driving, and didn't miss a thing. Now, I say that
was that
to
a
say
black man?
No, it was a white guy, but he was real dirty. He had grease all over his face.
And it was her grandfather.
but I say that to say this.
Mm-hmm.
When it is something that is important, when it is something that needs to be remembered, your brain has a way of filing it away.
Yes, it does.
Whether or not it is relevant at that moment, there is a way to recall it later.
Right.
When things
Now, let me point something out. When you're looking at witnesses' credibility, and I do this all the time. went and see Judge Langley caught on this. Way later than this should have ever gone with this woman. That they finally stopped her and told her to stop embellishing. Just answer the question.
Right.
And you see, that's what Lisa Tanner does. She gets witnesses and she leads them into a question, and then she lets them ramble and embellish. And it just went on and on and on and on and on. And it has, the Court of Criminal Appeals would ignore 100% of it, in that the Court of Criminal Appeals is primarily interested in only 3 identity witnesses. And those are the police officers. And Stacy's cousin.
Heather?
Who saw him at the Dairy Queen.
Okay.
Other than that, the other witnesses are of no consequence to the Court of Criminal Appeals. A relative, because the relative knows, his cousin, and if she's with a black guy.
Right.
Now, if Stacy's with any black guy in the eyes of the Court of Criminal Appeals, it's probably Rodney.
Okay.
Or it would indicate that she has no problem dating black guys. So you see either way.
Right.
But other witnesses, I saw her come in with a black guy at the HEB. Well, HEB is a place where everybody goes in Bastrop, because it's pretty much the only grocery store besides Super S. And let me tell you, we had a Super S here. It's not much of a grocery store.
Gotcha.
So it wouldn't surprise you to see any white person talking to a black person in Bastrop at HEB, and it means nothing. But those 3-4 witnesses are the only witnesses that the Court of Criminal Appeals is pretty much interested in. And this memory expert can't challenge a peace officer in the eyes of the court. Peace officers are part of government. They're part of law enforcement. This woman has a degree in bubbles over the top of cartoons, in essence.
Well,
that's all she is.
A degree in an opinion.
A degree in her own opinion.
Gotcha.
And so, but this is what Tanner does. And when you see this kind of witness, you know what she's doing. She's just trying to muddy the water as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well,
just to give...
Because she knows, and I hate to say this, but Lisa Tanner knows the truth. She's she knows the truth.
Oh, yeah, she knows the truth more than you know.
Oh, no, trust me. I know. She knows.
Well, see, I know because I have the documents. I recognized this early on. And so as soon as I completed my gig with the newspaper, did my review, submitted the findings and the facts to them, and I was a person who set Stacy's time of death in Giddings. It was in a letter to the editor dated August 23rd, 2001. Stacy died in Giddings. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Her dead body was brought here. And then I went after Lisa Tanner on all the anomalies I saw when I reviewed the documents. Now,
let me ask you something, David.
I filed records.
Sorry to interrupt you. How many records requests have you put in for records at the DA's office?
Oh, crap. A lot.
Can you put a number? Can you put a number?
Oh, God.
Okay.
I'm going to say 50.
How many responses have you gotten to those records requests where you actually got the records back?
Oh, I eventually get the... Well, now, see, there's a trick to that.
No, here, let me rephrase his question. How many actual records did you get?
Okay, now, again, there's some tricks here.
Here's the fancy answer.
First. Okay. First. My first records request, the very first one I filed was my request for the vehicle registration on the pickup.
Right.
Because because I knew Jimmy lied about the registration.
Okay.
And what I get shows that he sold the truck the 24th. Stacy goes missing, on the 23rd. They find the truck. Ed Samala escorts it to the DPS impound lot. And on the 24th, he's selling it to Gold Chevrolet. This is when the DPS is supposed to be processing the truck.
Right.
They don't have it. Now,
that was first records
the
request.
State kind of blew. Yeah, the state blew it all off. I did this, and this is what I'm going over with State in that State versus Reed. Now, understand, State versus Reed came out in 2006.
Okay.
The interview of me in State versus Reed was given to the producers in the first week of October 2001. I gave them that interview as part of their graduate film thesis from UT. Okay. And then they took the excerpts from that and put it in State versus Reed.
5 years later.
Yes. So
okay.
The interview of me is 5 years earlier than the production. So it's right at the end of I ended my relationship with the newspaper in September 2001, and in October, I started going after the state. Now, most of my early records requests, I already had the records.
You just wanted to know if they would
All
send
I was
them.
doing was getting Lisa Tanner to acknowledge that she was aware of how damning these records were. And so for listeners, let me tell you what she did, because y'all haven't seen this yet. Lisa Tanner would file an exception with the Public Records Division, arguing that the release of these records to me would interfere with her ability to prosecute Rodney Reed's appeal. Well, hello.
Say that one more time for me, please, David. Just say that one more time for me.
This is written in the Attorney General's Records Division's response to my public records request, that Lisa Tanner had filed an exception under the law enforcement exception of public records, stating that the release of this record to me would interfere in her ability, the Prosecution Assistance Division's ability, to prosecute Rodney's appeal. In other words, if I get this record, Rodney wins his appeal. I mean, can you believe this stuff?
So, isn't that the whole purpose?
And guess who has all that stuff?
Lisa Tanner. But you have these documents
Rodney's
also.
attorneys have all this.
Oh, you mean, okay. So you mean the many
That's
times
what
that you
I'm
requested
saying.
information, that you have compiled it and sent it to the Innocence Project and Rodney's defense.
Yes. Now, first off, with Bryce Benjett, I was a person who went and argued with the Texas Defender Service for them to take Rodney's case in October 2001. They agreed to take it in March of 2002. I met with Bryce Benjett probably 20 times or more.
Mm-hmm.
Sat down with the documents. Everything I had, I forwarded to him. Went to his office many times to sit down and walk him through the transcripts because he seemed not to have a grasp. Now, I did not know until much later that Bryce Benjett is a civil law attorney. He's never dealt criminal law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just to give you an idea, the judge who's presiding over this hearing, J.D. Langley,
Yes.
is a retired judge. Texas has a law that says a retired judge can only be appointed to a case in the field of his expertise. Now, what that means is you have two types of judges: civil law district court judges and criminal law district court judges.
Mm-hmm.
A district court judge whose whole life was on a civil bench, his specialty is in civil law. He cannot be appointed to bench a hearing in criminal law under the government code. You have to be a criminal judge. Now, some judges have specialty in both fields. They, for 10 years of their elected office, they were a district court judge in a criminal court. And they decided that they didn't like that, and they ran for an office of judge in a civil district court. So they're certified in both expertise, so they can sit on a criminal or civil trial.
Okay.
But but here you have in a murder in a criminal case, Texas forbids a judge from presiding over a criminal case if their expertise is only in civil law.
Right.
Then why in God's name do the courts appoint civil law attorneys to represent death row inmates?
That's crazy.
It is absolute crazy.
It's
you
a
see
setup,
the result
though.
of
It's a setup. It's a setup.
Like Barry
You got
Sanders,
apps and see.
cross-examining. Like
I didn't realize this.
Yesterday.
Josie calling. Josie just throwing rocks and firing shots.
Yeah, I tweeted Barry Shack yesterday too after that crap he did yesterday. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, throwing Rodney under the bus?
Yeah.
I see it.
Well, let's just wait a minute, because I got to be fair here. We got off this going down this hearing line, but let me do some little walkthroughs real quick. They had the two forensic pathologists.
Yeah.
They were worthless. You might as well have not had them, because in order to understand what happened to Rodney in 2017, you have to read the Court of Criminal Appeals response. And in essence, is what they were saying is, and Lisa Tanner did the same thing this week that was done back in 2017. The Ottaway asked Dr. Bodden on the stand that the pictures were not high quality that were taken during the autopsy showing the alleged sexual assault, so on and so forth. And he asked Dr. Bodden, so you're reviewing only an autopsy report. You don't have access to the body to see everything. The pictures are not great quality. So
who is in the best
Bayardo
position?
is actually in a better position to having seen the evidence and everything because he was there. And of course, Dr. Bodden said, absolutely. Now, here's the trick. And see, the Innocent Project does not understand this. Medical examiners in Texas are judges, and the judiciary stands together in this state. And so you cannot win challenging a medical examiner's autopsy report without first undermining the judicial standing of the medical examiner.
Right.
You could put on 100 forensic pathologists, the best in the world, and it wouldn't change the Court of Criminal Appeals opinion, because Bayardo had the catbird seat, being that he did the autopsy. He saw her body in clear, life color, when these guys are using decrepit pictures. Because why? Because the state tampered with the quality of the pictures, like they did the crime scene video.
Right.
Now, so they walked right into it again today, or last week.
Yes.
You had Baker, and so if you don't know who Andrew Baker was, the first medical examiner, he's the medical examiner who did the autopsy on George Floyd. Yes. He did Stacy's autopsy review 2 months before George Floyd's death. And then the other guy was from Tennessee. He's a forensic pathologist. The 600-pound gorilla in the room that is never addressed by these medical examiners are the burns on Stacy's body. Now, conversely, though, they will counter. The prosecution will say, oh, did you know her body was covered by a wool blanket? Wouldn't that trap the heat and help dissipate the rigor? No. The dead body doesn't give off heat. And for that short a time, it wouldn't make any difference. And yet, not one of them will say, these burns are odd in that they're in the area where the rigor is irregularly broke.
But
not one of them would say that.
And it's interesting that they didn't say that, and the defense didn't bring that information to light.
The defense didn't bring it up. The state didn't bring it up. Everybody
after
ignores it.
Getting documents from you, David, because I have received those same documents that you have sent to them. And you have sent them to me, showing me where you have sent it to them. So I have the same documents that they have.
Right, and what I did is I take the pictures, the burns, I take all the evidence and put it together. Now, we know
this is why Joy says this is why Joy says you have wrapped up all this evidence, this information in nice shiny paper and added a nice little bow and presented it to the defense team.
So people know, I get called, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm not. I look at all the evidence, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. I put it together.
Right.
Until all the pieces support the final picture, you don't know what the final picture is. So I take all the pieces of the puzzle and then start breaking them down. That's why I start filing public records requests. I start talking to people. I start filling in the missing pieces. So here's the facts of the case. Stacy, when her body's found, has fluids running out of her nose and mouth down the side of her face. And they look like, if you have good quality pictures, which I do, they look like how wax runs down the side of a candlestick.
Right.
A stream runs, it cools.
Rocky said what?
Another stream.
I'm sorry, David. Josie, Rocky said what?
I said Rocky Warlow said that was Stacy's saliva when he was on the stand.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Rocky Wardlow, is not a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a very bright person on top of that. Of course, that's why he was a Texas Ranger.
He's definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. Definitely not.
Look, I was dealing with Rocky Wardlow before the Stacey Stites case.
Yeah.
He was conducting an investigation of some illegal dumping on my property. I had already, with George Bush's environmental officer and the Texas National Resource Agency, we had caught the people, confiscated the illegal chemicals and everything, and it was all done before Rodney came back to me. He goes, well, I've completed my investigation. I can't find anything.
Yeah, Rocky.
I said, Rocky, it's already taken care of. What do you mean? Well, I said, I already caught the people.
Right.
Already confiscated the chemicals. He goes, what? Well, how did you do that? I said, I did it with George Bush's environmental officer, or governor's environmental officer, and did the investigative work myself, which is real good that I did.
I'm going to say this much.
Yeah.
He's not very bright, but of all of the officers that worked this case, and I do mean all of them, including Scummy David Board, he is the only one I have ever feared since I was young. When we would see him come in, when we would sit up at the Texas Grill after church,
yeah,
and he would come in, we'd leave because I was that afraid of him. And I don't know.
Yeah, and it was all image, smokes, and mirror.
Right, but nevertheless, he was the only one I ever feared. And I don't stare easy. Even when I was a kid, I did not stare easy. When I agreed to go to Texas to talk to 2020, I said, okay, as long as you can have me in and out of there within a 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did not want to linger, especially by myself.
Right.
I never trusted, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that when I was in his presence, when I was in the same room or vicinity as him, he gave off this vibe of, you can't trust me. And I felt that. And you have a gut instinct for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And when your gut says don't trust that person, especially as a young kid, you don't trust that person.
Right.
And
and understand that you're a woman. You're looking at a guy. He's a state officer. He's got all the power of the state. Me, I'm a guy. I deal with state officers, and officials, corporate executives, CEOs, FBI agents, U.S. attorneys. I'm sorry. They're just people. They're. Right. I have generally found that they're generally less smart than the average person because their whole life is school.
About him being smart, I'm just saying he was.
No, but at the same time, and smart comes generally with dangerous. Now, I'm not stupid. I know Rocky Wardlow can be very dangerous, and I took that into account and protected myself from that.
Right.
But you would have to be virtually stupid to put yourself in harm's way that Rocky Wardlow, would be extremely dangerous to you.
But you have to think of it this way. I was the only white girl sitting at a table of nothing but black men.
No, I understand that, and you're younger too. I mean, you're
right, and they were all ministers. And I remember Reverend C.A. Williams turning to me and saying to me, "Go, don't let that man run you out of here." I said, "He ain't running me out of here." Yes, he is. Look at you already grabbing your purse, trying to get up and go. And I was like, Reverend Williams, it's something about that man. I don't trust him. I said I don't like him. And even when he smiles, there's just something so evil about his smile. And I remember Reverend Williams and Reverend Green in unison said to me, "Well, that's because he ain't nothing but pure evil." And
that history bears that out. But back to
any of it.
I understand that. But see, Rocky Wardlow's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So you're just recently dealing with him. But Rocky Wardlow had been around.
Well, we're still talking about 1989, 1990.
Right. He's been involved in other cases. In fact, the current Bastrop sheriff is the ex-chief ranger when all of this, went down in 96. And he got removed for committing perjury, covering up a state official who was murdered along with his wife and 2 kids because he was working on a report about fraud with the Racing Gambling Commission.
But you see,
and he was executed.
Here it is again. This goes to show the type of place Bastrop is. A couple of weeks ago.
Well, no, this was not in Bastrop. This was in another county, Hayes County, the county to the east and south of Travis County.
I'll tell you this though.
This was in 91.
I'll tell you this. Someone recently sent me some information about some history coming out of Bastrop that I'm going to be looking into in the coming weeks. They caught the broadcast. They caught one of my broadcasts with you, David, and they reached out to me and sent me some information. And one of the bits of information included something about a cult that was setting up shop in Bastrop, and the leaders of the cult setting up on property owned by one of the law enforcement officers. So it is some information that I've just started looking at and looking into that I thought, this was interesting. And the cult was recruiting young girls between the ages of 16 to 22,
I know what
23.
you're talking about.
So, it's something that I've just started looking at, and I'm going to look into some more in the coming weeks and months. In fact, right now, I'm not even going to continue following the chronological order of this. Josie, there was something that you wanted to address early out. Take the phone off mute, Josie. Where did she go?
Did we lose her?
No, she's there. I knew she had put her phone on mute.
There's how big of a delay do you have?
Hello?
Kevin?
There she is.
There you are.
Yeah. So Josie.
Y'all asking about me?
Yeah. There was something.
We just getting in, so I had to put everything on mute.
Yeah.
So y'all wouldn't hear the noise in the background.
Right, that's what I was saying. Take the phone off mute now. There was something that you wanted to say about something that happened today, because I'm going to forego the chronological order of the proceedings.
Okay. It was something that Deborah said when she was on the stand. And
Deborah, Stacy's sister, Deborah.
Yeah. So So she said something like when she last saw Stacy on February of 1996 when she was getting her braces off.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said Stacy spent the night and had a good night, and they were talking about future plans, and Stacy was excited about having kids. Now, that kind of reminded me of what David said about Stacy being pregnant before when she was killed.
Right.
So I was like, what
Yeah,
do you
see, I
mean
thought that
excited about
too.
having kids? You mean she was actually pregnant? Like, what does that mean? Because
No, she
Right.
was
getting married.
pregnant. Even in the records, one of the boyfriends of Stacy that she went to high school with,
Mm-hmm.
guy by the name of Jeremiah Smith. In his the notes from his statement that he gave to law enforcement, in their written notes, they state that he told them that Stacy had mentioned to Jeremiah Smith that she had a miscarriage in February or March of 96. But when the officers wrote up the statement, typed it up, they omitted it. That statement about the miscarriage. Now, here's the deal, and I'll say this again, and I'll swear to it on a stack of Bibles. In the early spring of 2008, probably was in March, I had one conversation with Carol Stites. She admitted that Stacy was pregnant, that the fetus she was carrying was Rodney's. Carol wanted Stacy to have an abortion, but Stacy was refusing. And I challenged her. I said, why haven't you come forward with this? Because it confirms that Rodney and Stacy were having a relationship, and that, that Jimmy is the killer. Because I'm going to tell you, the reason Jimmy asked Stacy to marry him, there wasn't any big damn engagement or all that crap. Stacy came down pregnant in December 1995. She assumed it was Jimmy. She went and told him. He asked her to marry him, and then he promptly moved Stacy in with him, and Carol moved up in the apartment downstairs.
Hey, speaking of which, they had Jimmy's mother on the stand today too, and they didn't mention anything about her little bout with Carol Stites.
No, we talked a little. Kevin and I talked about that, and I pointed out something. Jimmy's mother admitted a felony while she was on the stand. And then Deborah compounded times probably 7. Jimmy's mother said that she gave Jimmy a Xanax. Now that's a felony. That means that Jimmy's mother had a prescription for Xanax.
Mm-hmm.
She said she gave everybody Xanax according to what she said.
Yeah, that's right. And then while they're all over at Stacy's mother's waiting for news, she's handing out Xanax to everybody. Now, the question is, why does she have a prescription for Xanax, and when did she get it? Because I'd be willing to bet that she got the prescription in the spring of 96 when Jimmy and Stacy are getting married, and she's aware from Jimmy that the child might be fathered by a black man. And you know how crazy that would make Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
And
that would cause a mother to drink.
I'll tell you,
so why
I'd
not
just
take
about
Xanax?
put money on it.
That would cause a mother to drink. So why wouldn't it cause her
Absolutely.
to take Xanax?
And she's trying to slow the wedding down. Carol's trying to speed it up. She knows what her son will do if Stacy delivers a biracial baby. It'd be over for every one of them. It'd probably kill Stacy, her mother, the baby,
Anybody
and
that got in the way.
It would be like it'd be like one of these postal shootouts. So clearly, Jimmy's mother knows him, knows his temper, knows his racial leanings.
Mm-hmm.
And it would terrify the hell out of her if Jimmy suspected that Stacy was carrying a black baby, and Jimmy was Mama's boy.
Right.
He told Mama everything. And seeing those notes from Carol, those Lambda notes, if you put them in their proper order, and they're not bait stamped in the proper order, Carol is panicking the weekend before Stacy gets killed, and telling Stacy, if you're going to get out of this marriage, now's the time to do it. Now, why does Carol want her out of the marriage? Well, based on what Carol told me, Stacy's pregnant. The father is a black male. I'll tell you, that should terrify the holy crap out of Carol. And Stacy's response to her is, you think you have pressure? You don't know what pressure is, because now look at Stacy's perspective. I'm carrying a baby that's probably fathered by a black man, and I'm engaged to marry a racist white man who would probably kill all of us.
Right.
Yeah, I can tell you, there is the pressure. And now you can begin to see the Xanax. Now, as I pointed out to Kevin, Jimmy Fennell's mother giving Jimmy Xanax on that day was obstruction of evidence and tampering, because now her son's drugged when they need to know the most information from him, and he's mellowed out. It also, Xanax makes you emotional as hell. So, yeah, when they're talking about it, Jimmy's just blubbering and crying, well, why not? She just dosed him with Xanax. You see, and it changes everything, and you still know what's going on. She's still doing it a week later when they're having the funeral in Corpus. And so look at what it's done. Everybody going, well, Jimmy was really weird during the funeral, and he didn't act like a grieving ex-fiancé. Well, why not?
Because he was drugged up.
He's being drugged by Xanax. And see, all of this is illegal. It's all felonies.
But who's gonna go after them? Who's gonna go after them for Xanax, though? Ain't nobody going after anybody for Xanax.
I'll tell you what. Right now, in this, you're right. But you know what? As this case starts unraveling,
yes,
I think you might be surprised, because if the state gets their hand caught in that cookie jar, they're going to go after everybody.
But the state is already caught in the cookie jar. The state is hiding evidence. The state is already well aware.
Let me take that lead. Because today they had a DNA expert talking about the beer cans, the DNA on the beer cans, and how, and this surprised the crap out of me, because their head of the serology department says that still they can't tell if the mixture is from Stacy, Ed Samala, and David Hall all together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
speaking of which,
I had always, they made it very clear in that evidence you're hearing in 2001 that they could exclude Ed Samala, but not David Hall. Now they're saying they can't exclude any of them.
Right.
You know what they said that was?
What's
they
that,
said that was a reinterpretation rather than an actual retest. So apparently there was no retesting. There was a reinterpretation.
Well, actually, it's a little more muddled than that. Okay, I just got an email in from a professor that's monitoring this. Let me go ahead and pull this document up. I'm going to read something from you out of my files.
Yeah.
Concerning the beer cans. Something that, this is the first time you'll ever hear this. Anytime anybody has heard this. It's been given to the Innocence Project already. Okay. The date of this, well, let me go to the other file. I'm going to read you the chain. Okay, on November 10th, 2001, I filed a public records request. This is my records request. Please find by this letter my two requests under the Open Records Act. One, the DPS Crime Laboratory Report, completed on May 13, 1998, titled Additional Analysis, per the request by the defense on May 4, 1998. in cause number 8701 and ordered by the court. 2. The LabCorp tests done to confirm and or refute the results of the May 13, 1998 DPS Crime Lab report referenced herein and above as request number 1. LabCorp invoiced Bastrop County for the requested test on June 23, 98, transaction ID number 8/P-74796 for the sum of $6,900. Please mail the requested documents to, and has my email, my post office mailing address.
Right.
Here's the response from the DPS, Open Records Division, dated November 27, 2001. Actually, this is from the General Counsel's Office of the Department of Public Safety. And it says, Dear Mr. Fisher, please be advised the department does not have the LabCorp test results that you have requested. Those results were sent directly to the Attorney General Prosecution Assistance Division. That's in Austin. Therefore, the department has no information responsive to that portion of your request. The department believes the laboratory report you have requested is accepted from disclosure under Section 552.108 of the Government Code. A copy of the department's request for an Attorney General decision is enclosed. Sincerely, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's what they just said. So to put this in perspective, on the last day of trial, it was an off day. It's a Monday. Elizabeth Johnson is flying in from California. Will Young claims that he got the results on the beer can and then faxes the report, has the report faxed to the Bastrop District Attorney's office, Pennock's office, directly across the hall from where Rodney Reed's on trial on the last day. Faxes those lab reports on the beer cans that show that they could be mixture between Stacy, David Hall, and Ed Somala. So those reports were faxed to Pennock's office, care of Mitzi Wolf and Lisa Tanner. Okay. This is something that the defense never saw. Okay. Now, Tanner, at that evidentiary hearing in 2001, says that when she heard about this report on that off day of May 13th, 98, that she ordered the serologist, Will Young, to take the remainder of the swabs that they have and overnight express them to LabCorp in North Carolina, the state's private lab, for a 24-hour turnaround. So the results would be completed before the end of the day on the 14th. Now, as Kevin and I talk, I've done this, in my past dealings. I have had to order things on an emergency production, and when you do that, there is no canceling, that they will run the test whether you want it or not, and the money you paid for it, do you have to pay in advance?
You're not getting it.
There's no refunds.
Right.
That's right. So even if you don't need it, after you've ordered it and paid for it, that's it. Sorry, you don't, you still have to pay. So Tanner said that when Elizabeth Johnson didn't bring up the beer cans, in her testimony, that she immediately called LabCorp and canceled the test. This report says, no, she didn't. She had the results sent directly to her office in Austin.
Yes.
So nobody has ever seen what the real results on those beer cans are. Well, based on records I got this year, in January of this year, the results that they got, that Will Young got on that May 13th date, were not Ed Somala and David Hall's. They were David Lawhon's.
And is that
why?
Confirmed, though? Or is that an opinion?
No, that is confirmed by the document trail. You see, documents have telltale tracking pieces to them. In this case, Tanner pointed the finger at the tracking document that tells you. And what she testified about in 2001 is the reason she could swear that she gave this lab report on the beer cans to the defense is because of the bait stamp numbers.
Right.
And then she went further and said that she can't swear that she personally gave this report to the defense because, as you can see, based on the bait stamp number, she gave well over 3,000 records to the defense. And here's the problem. If you've ever seen any of Rodney Reed's documents, they have an ink stamp on it. The old rolling ink stamp.
We have talked about this before, too.
On it.
Yes, we have talked about
this. Right. And all Rodney Reed's bait stamps are this ink roller. Now, when you start bait stamping a case, you cannot change the bait stamp method or the numerology, because then you create questions of tampering.
Okay.
Well, the bait stamp numbers on those beer can lab report are typed numbers. They're the numbers that you would get off a typewriter or a word processor, and there's only 4. Rodney's has 6. All his documents are bait stamped, even if it's, item number 12. If it's document 12,
it's 4 zeros and 1 2.
4 zeros before the 12.
Right.
If it's 600, then you have 3 zeros and then 600.
And 0. Right.
Yeah. And so, but these are typed numbers, and there's only 4 of them. And they're in the 3,000 plus range. I think it's 3,200, 400.
Right.
Anyway, so I note this difference. And so I go to David Lawhon's file and get the witness statements of the guys who gave witness statements against David Lawhon, who were with him.
Right.
When he allegedly abducted, and their bait stamp numbers are typed. They're 4 numbers, and they're in the high 2000s.
Oh, high 2000.
The highest, yes, highest 2000.
Okay.
I went back to Reed's case and went and looked at all the bait stamp numbers. All the way to 2008, this is 10 years after his conviction, the highest bait stamp number was some articles that Lisa Tanner gave because she's introduced them into evidence at his evidentiary hearings in 2006 and 8.
Yes.
The highest number that ever got was 1,400. And there are news articles 10 years after the trial.
Well,
now, which tells you that the reason
damning.
The defense never...
That is damning.
Now, the reason the defense never saw this lab report is because it was generated in David Lawhon's case, and it's his DNA on the beer cans at the crime scene, and so they stuck it in David Lawhon's file, because if that jury had seen that David Lawhon's DNA was on the beer cans where Stacy's body was found, that was a kiss of death. Now, to go along with this, in January of this year, I get a handwritten note from Will Young's file about the beer cans. And he writes this note on May 13th, 1998. And he's writing it to his boss, the head of the DNA section that he works in.
And
he's telling her...
This is what we had addressed about the facts and the facts cover sheet.
Right.
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 Where,
what this says is, what Will Young is telling his boss is he's got these results on the beer cans. And she needs to come down and take a look at his results and make whatever changes she feels necessary. Are you kidding me? He's admitting, he's telling her that you might want to change these results. Well, then he tells her which computer in that office is his, and then he tells her what the access code is to get to the document. So she can change it in his computer and then print it out. Then he tells her that she needs to fax this record to Lisa Tanner Mitzi Wolf, and she gives the fax number. In this handwritten letter, he gives the fax number of the Bastrop County District Attorney, Pinnock. that this has to be faxed to this number before 9 a.m. May 14th, 1998, because Tanner might want to would want to give this to the defense. So what does his boss, Irma Rios, do? She faxes the damn report, like he says, at the time frame. This is the fax cover sheet. Now, this is what I noted in 2001. All of the records they were arguing about whether they gave that lab report to the defense or not, all copies are faxed copies, but there's no fax cover sheet. Well, when you introduce a fax copy of a lab report into evidence, the fax cover sheet is part of the record. And so I fought from October to December to get that fax cover sheet. When I get the fax cover sheet, guess what it says? In the memo box, in handwriting from Irma Rios, Will Young's boss that he wrote that letter to, says that Will Young isn't in today, so I signed his report.
Right.
She signed his report. He didn't, which makes it hearsay, which means they could have never given it to the defense. That's first. Secondly, the reason, and to this day Will Young hasn't signed that report, the reason is he can't sign the report because Irma Rios changed his findings.
So
when she faxes it, she has to sign it, which is an acknowledgement that she did what he suggested and changed the findings. So
here it is again.
What she changed.
Sorry, David. Here it is again.
Sure,
this is information that you have put together from before and sent to the defense team, correct?
Correct.
Right. So we have talked about this before on this broadcast. So this isn't new information to me, and to some listening in, they might find it new and interesting. You can check some of the previous broadcasts that we have done and hear where David has gone into this in depth. Without getting too far into this also, David, we're still giving bits and pieces and tossing out things as it relates to this
Kevin,
hearing.
let me go a little further because this is going to come back to this hearing. And I'm going to have to back up a little bit. It's going to surprise you what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Now, I know from now the full record chain that I have, I know what happened. Well, Young got the results. They were damning as crap. Startlingly so. So he calls his boss and says, oh, my God, Lisa Tanner's going to have a cow. So you need to come over here and look at these results and, make whatever changes you need to make and then fax them to Lisa Tanner and Mitzi Wolf over at the courthouse. My computer is that computer in the back corner. Here's my access code number.
Right.
It's in the letter. So now, dealing with evidence and change of evidence and how things work. So when Irma Rios does what Will Young tells her to do, and it's confirmed by the fax cover sheet that they never wanted anybody to see, but I threatened to sue them in December if they didn't, turn it over.
Okay.
So they turned it over. Now the picture is complete. Irma Rios changes Will Young's report, and that's confirmed by the fact that she signs his name to the report, not him. Okay. He can't sign it. He hadn't fixed that problem in 24 years.
Right.
Because he can't sign it because it's not his work anymore.
Right.
Now, so what does this tell us? It tells us that the names David Hall and Ed Samela are not the real names that they got. So how do we figure out who the report actually named in the beginning?
I look
and I go, okay, got it. Who? Huh?
From the bait stamps.
Yeah, the bait stamp. Now I got to say, okay, who could be worse than Ed Salma and David Board? Could it be Hernandez? No. Could it be Rocky Wardlow? No. David Board? No. You know why? None of them have their DNA profiles on file with the DPS crime lab. So it's got to be somebody whose DNA is on file. And that's when I recognized the bait stamps. Oh, my God, the reason this is stuck in David Lawhon's file is because it's David Lawhon's DNA on the beer cans.
And for those wondering who David Lawhon is, he is on
He was
death
the
row
original suspect in Stacy's murder.
And he is on death row for Marian Alt's murder.
No. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison.
50 years.
For a second woman's murder. What was that? I couldn't hear what Nozey said.
I would say he was the original person they was going to frame to cover for Jimmy Fennell.
Right, that's right.
Jimmy Fennell was
and so, see, they tried to pin two murders on David Lawhon, Marianne Alt and Stacy Stites. They died 10 days apart. David Lawhon would not plead to Stacy's murder, but see, they were framing him for it to begin with in the first place. So they were planting his DNA everywhere. And then when he wouldn't plead, they got some trouble. Now, here's what I'm suggesting, and I put this out there. The DNA that they're using as Rodney's DNA is not his. It's David Lawhon's.
No.
And we saw a hint of that today, and I'm not going to touch on that. I was, but I'm not now. And here's why.
With before you go on to the why, a few broadcasts ago, I showed some documents of panties on Stacy Stites.
Right.
2 pictures, 2 different panties. And I showed
on her body the same day.
On her body the same day. I also showed a picture of a panty with a date and an initial on it. The initials YW. WY.
Will Young.
WY.
Yeah,
Will Young.
Will Young.
And the date was, what was that, March 10, 96?
No, it was May 3rd, 96.
Okay, getting digits mixed up.
Which is the date that Marianne Alt went missing and was actually murdered on that day.
5/3/96, yeah. So, here it is, and I asked a question. On social media. Why is it that there's a different date on the panties for the girl who died, for Stacy Stites? And someone responded.
After Stacy Stites.
Someone responded because that was the day it was processed. Yep. And I'm thinking,
see,
really? That's not how that goes.
Yeah, I've dealt with an attorney here recently, in this case. And I presented some documents, and they emailed back and said, oh, well, that's not the time that they got back to the lab. That's when after they got back and processed all of their work and were closing up for the night. And I go, lady,
when do they do that?
This is a criminal case. The time is evidentiary. You have to sign in and out. You don't sign after you give a time after you process, because it would be of no consequence. You have to log your time, the time that your crime lab left the building and the exact time that it gets back. Nobody cares how long it takes you to unload your dirty diapers or your muddy tennis shoes. That's not evidence of anything. But the time you get back is, and then I went and pulled extensive documents showing that this is the evidentiary time stamp. So what that date is, and the way that the crime lab keeps evidence in their lockers, identifiable. If somebody gets some stuff, takes a bunch of evidence out in 2 cases, and then they have some other serologist comes and looks at them and then has to put them back. Well, they organize them on the case numbers and the dates of the death of the victim. All the evidence from that victim has the date of death of that victim. So if you have 2 victims and different dates of death, then it's easy to separate them.
Right.
What is so damning in this case is the panties on Stacy in the crime scene have Mary Ann Alt's her date of death on them, not Stacy's.
Right.
Now, so since we've gone that far, might as well go the rest of the way. Today, they asked the state's DNA expert, gave the state's DNA expert an article to read, which says that sperm can remain on cloth for months if it hasn't been washed. And the state's expert agreed that that is true. And boy, let me tell you what. If that's what I think it is, that is the first indication that they understand the stuff I've sent them.
Well,
sure, all you got to do is ask Bill Clinton about that stuff. He could tell you.
No, because with Bill Clinton, they were talking about cigars. Does the DNA stay on the cigar?
No, there was a DNA stain on the dress.
I know. But I'm taking
not that cigar. Not that cigar, David. Not that cigar. But David, here's something else that's interesting where that is concerned. Colleen, thank you for that little bit of information. Tomorrow, the state is going to call witnesses from the punishment phase. And Rodney's attorneys are objecting, but Rodney's allowing it.
Yes, and that's what they said, that the judge wasn't going off into the rapes.
Right.
And then they let the state talk about the rapes.
Right.
And now you're going to bring the rapes in. Well, you know what? You better be damn careful.
Well, here is Joy. Here is Joy, though. Here is Joy, and Joy is ready.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, I understand that. But Joy is first-hand knowledge.
Right.
But you see, there's some DNA problems. And I mean some monstrous DNA problems on those extraneous rape cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the records. And I'm going to tell you, if they do that, they will rue the day that they did that. If they call those people into this and then put that before the Court of Criminal Appeals.
So does the defense. Because you sent these records to the defense.
Well, you see, it makes it difficult on rebuttal. These guys don't understand the rebuttal. But in their documentation, they can show the records, and in their briefs, call the state out for perjury and suborning perjury and fraud on the courts.
And
you see, this is a dangerous game they're playing. But let me clear something up first.
Okay.
On the stuff we were talking about, as you said, that I have provided this stuff to the defense and they haven't used it. Well, there's actually a reason. I went back after we talked later this afternoon before the program started.
Yes.
And went back and looked at some dates. None of this stuff that we just talked about, that I just received in, a lot of it this year.
Yes.
Is outside the scope of the evidentiary hearing.
Really?
You see, the evidentiary hearing is about stuff that the court approved back in 2019.
Oh.
And you had Judge Langley said there are 4 things he's challenged, charged with determining. Well, this stuff is outside that boundary for the most part.
But
which means all of this is new, which means the Innocence Project, as soon as this evidentiary hearing is over, and before the judge types up his response to the Court of Criminal Appeals,
yes,
they can already start filing a new habeas, one that can take them all the way back to 2001 to that evidentiary hearing that the court said they wouldn't consider. Because with my records, I was able to show that the attorneys at the Court of Criminal Appeals and the Bastrop District Clerk's Office pulled a fast one on the Court of Criminal Appeals. They sent Rodney's habeas that evidentiary hearing file, back to the Bastrop courts, and then returned it and put a different date received number on it. They put a date received number of January 28, 2002. I checked and verified that report, that habeas was delivered to the Court of Criminal Appeals the first week of October 2001.
Oh, wow.
It was just so happened I was at the Bastrop District Clerk's office the morning of January 22nd in time to hear the phone call from the Court of Criminal Appeals asking the Bastrop District Clerk to return the habeas hearing file to the CCA. And as soon as she hung up the phone, I asked her, and she confirmed yes, that the court had sent back that file to them, and now they wanted it returned. And when they got it back, they file stamped it a bogus receive date to make the court believe it was a second habeas filed after the deadline. And that was a criminal fraud. It was orchestrated through Tanner's office.
Okay, so
anyway, that is going to be a foundation of a new evidentiary hearing, and it covers all of this evidence because it focuses on that 2001 evidentiary hearing, and the records I have now are dominoes.
Okay, we're gonna
shows that everything Tanner did. Well, no, it shows everything Tanner did. All of her testimony, her solicited testimony from Will Young, her solicited testimony from Mitzi Wolf, her elicited testimony from David Ward, from Rocky Wardlow. All of it was perjured. Every last bit of it.
Okay, so David.
And that's what they were so afraid of. If that evidentiary hearing got before the Court of Criminal Appeals, it would be a gift that would keep on giving for Rodney for decades.
But this is just it.
And it's going to all come back.
It doesn't just affect Rodney. It doesn't just affect Rodney Reed. And this is what I fear is the issue here. Whereas because this case with Rodney Reed stands to expose so much of the Texas judiciary that they're fighting tooth and nail to keep as much of it as possible.
That's correct. But see, Kevin, they keep adding to it in boatloads. For instance, one of the medical examiners that the state called this week is Susanna Dana.
Mm-hmm.
Susanna Dana is the worst person in the world the state could call. Because Susanna Dana, because what it does is it undermines everything Bayardo did. And it starts a cascade that could wreck every autopsy done in 3 of the state's biggest medical examiners' offices for 30, 40, 50 years. In those 3 counties and all the surrounding counties for that time.
And as well as it should.
Here's what they did. By calling Susanna Dana was a deputy medical examiner in Travis County starting in 92. But from 85 to 92, she was the deputy chief medical examiner in San Antonio. And she was letting Bayardo perform murder autopsy cases and type the reports in her name as if she came up from San Antonio and did the autopsy, which is unconstitutional, which she didn't do.
Right.
And Bayardo was scribbling his signature over the typed name. Now, there are lots of them. There are over 1,200 of these. But in 92, when Susanna Dana came up here, she signed the same autopsy services contract Bayardo has.
I've seen that
for doing autopsies for the just JP counties as a private physician. Stacy's autopsy was done by Bayardo not as the Travis County medical examiner, but as a private physician for profit.
Yes, he got paid for
that.
For
money.
Which
he got paid.
Unconstitutional.
Well, no, he committed perjury when he testified he didn't have any financial enumeration in her autopsy.
Oh,
he also typed the autopsy report.
Yes, he did do that.
Yes. Now, he also typed the autopsy report under the Travis County Medical Examiner's letterhead and used the title as Chief Medical Examiner when he signed the autopsy report. But he did the autopsy in Austin not as a Travis County Medical Examiner, but as a private physician. So that autopsy report is a falsified state record. It's already a third-degree felony. If he introduces it into court, it's aggravated perjury, another third-degree felony, and then when he testifies that he did the autopsy as a Travis County Medical Examiner, it's an additional charge of aggravated perjury, an additional stackable charge of a third-degree felony, which kills Stacy Stites' autopsy, all of his testimony, all the burns, all the time of death, all of it. And that's all the defense had to do, was bring that up this week, and Rodney would be on the fast track to a new
Getting
trial.
home.
And I mean a fast track.
Well, you know what? We got to wrap up. It's interesting. I don't know what's happening, Josie. Why you're not hearing me? Listen, we got to wrap up. There should be closing out this week, giving closing arguments. This introduction of witnesses from the punishment phase, Joy, I would say ready up.
I'm ready.
Hopefully, ready up to get a call, because if they're going to be Vivian Harbottle.
Not only can I testify about Angela's, but I can also let them know that I heard with my own little ears on either side of my head Pat Barnett bragging about what he did to Vivian Harbottle.
Thank you. I was just about to talk about Vivian Harbottle really quickly.
Okay, let me put out to the listeners so they know this.
Yeah.
I have the full trial transcripts from that rape trial in Wichita Falls. I have the whole trial transcript. I also have all the witness statements. And let me tell you, they are not what you think they are. You'll know why the jury acquitted him when you just read the witness statements of Connie York.
Mm.
I mean, it's pretty ugly for Connie York.
Okay.
So
I just got a message about Missy Wolf and Jimmy getting into Missy Wolf's car, walking out the courthouse with Missy Wolf, getting into her car, leaving like their best buddies after Jimmy testified. Even that, and
witness tampering?
David, I think that question
let's
is
just
directed.
say that was that's more than questionable activity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And see her escorting in and Chatty Cathian, the Stites family, Susanna Dana, all of these people, Norma Farley.
Yep.
It's not a good look. And in fact, again, the Innocence Project, being Texas attorneys, I don't think that they're understanding the magnitude of what they're seeing, because they don't understand the position of people. Now, and so you know. Yeah, well, so you know. Let me close this out with this. I already have a lot of things that are already working, just in case the Innocence Project drops the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of irons in the fire. Documents are being requested, produced, talking to officials, putting together a hammer. And I mean a hammer.
Right.
So if the state wants to go this route, they're going to pay a horrifically dear price.
But, David, either way, isn't the state looking to pay a horrifically dear price with Rodney? Any kind of win for Rodney is a major blow to the state.
Well, actually, they could pin it primarily on Lisa Tanner and Mitzi Wolf. And see, this is the problem that's going on here. I think it's very clear that the state has let Mitzi Wolf and Lisa Tanner know that if this thing comes apart, they're the one that's going to take the fall. But when you do that, it just encourages them to even create more havoc that will cause even more fallout. That'll make it even harder for the state to contain with just Mitzi Wolf and Lisa Tanner. And that's what they're doing.
So
and the state
they're not going
doesn't
down alone.
understand. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand the magnitude of what they're doing, but this boy does. And let me tell you, it's caused me to start maneuvering real fast.
Hey, listen. We're going to wrap this up and keep our ears open and our eyes glued on what is coming out of Bastrop for Rodney Reed come tomorrow and possibly Friday. I don't know. They're supposed to have closing arguments tomorrow.
Closing arguments will go through Friday.
Okay.
Each side has 12 hours of closing arguments.
Okay, so we'll see what happens through Friday. And we may have to have a little chat again on Monday. I don't know. I'm not too sure yet.
Well, and see, the judge has the authority to bring this into Monday as well. He can spill this case into Monday.
He already said that it could go into Monday because they have a lot of hours left on both ends.
Yeah, exactly. They've got there are 25 hours that of closing arguments. So they can't do that in 2 days because that's only 16 hours.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a weekend coming up. Lisa Tanner also lied about Rodney being arrested for Linda's alleged attack. That's lying, Linda Schluter.
Actually, he was arrested, and then they dropped the charges. So technically, he was arrested, and he could have sued Bastrop for false arrest. Mm-hmm. But they let him go, dropped the bond, and everything. And I'm positive that had to do with Linda Schluter's inch-long fingernails, all 10 of them. Mm-hmm. Not a one broken and not a scratch on Rodney. I think that's pretty well told.
Josie, wasn't it you that found that statement by lying Linda Schluter stating that her and Jimmy have been friends for years?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't me that found it. It was somebody else found it. She was saying she was in a debate.
Linda Schluter has made comments about her and Jimmy Fennell being friends, and she dated one of Ed Somola's brothers. She also dated one of the judges there. She's a gadfly.
Well, she said this on Facebook, though. She said it to Tammy Hannah,
I know.
best friend.
She's a gadfly. She's a glory hog. And if you look at the timing, Linda Schluter alleged rape took place between Jimmy flunking his first polygraph and just a week or so before he had to take his second polygraph. He was trying to get the attention focused to Rodney real fast because he knew he was going to flunk that second polygraph too. He went on to flunk
3.
Yeah, he flunked 2 on the first one and 1 on the second. They gave him 2 polygraphs the first time.
I was going to say, in the Gelter group, they questioned her about that statement that she made, and then she said something like she became friends with Jimmy at the trial back in '98. I'm like, what kind of sense is that?
Where was that, in the bathroom?
I don't know, but I don't know. But she said it in one of the Gelter groups before they made it private.
I'm a guy. I'm curious.
That was the answer that she gave.
Since I was on the second floor, that might be considered the Mile High Club in Bastrop.
Fancy cigars Bill Clinton had.
Right, Joy.
It's all in the cigar. Anyway, we better end this. I'm going to get myself in trouble.
That was the funniest thing you've ever said, David. That was the funniest thing I've ever heard you say, David. That was funny.
David, you're going to get yourself into more trouble. When are you not in trouble?
I know. My mouth has get me in trouble every time.
Mr. Batinsky himself. Hey, Red Fox, welcome. Better late than never. Welcome. All right, so here's the thing. For those of you who are new to this, you can go ahead and check out any of my previous broadcasts with David Fisher as we talk about the Rodney Reed case, or any which way you want to look at it, Rodney Reed being on death row or Stacey Stites being killed, any which way you want to take it from, it's the same information. And it's not just cut and dry only involving Rodney Reed and Stacey Stites. There are so many other players in this. And some are still with us. Some have been taken out. I can't even say some have been dearly departed. They were taken out. And we hear officers coming forward in this hearing talking about not wanting to come forward back then because of fear of also being taken out. Not my words, not David's words, not Nozey's or Josie's words. Nobody's making up anything. We're just saying exactly how it went down, what was there. Now, anybody want to contest it, make sure you're bringing documents. Don't come to me with a trial transcript and an opinion. You will be ignored and dismissed. I stopped having a whole discussion with someone, I don't know, coming out of left field and thinking that they, quote, they dunked on me with this information. Listen, I'm Jamaican. I will tell you to go dunk on your mama. So, I don't know how many of you understand that, but I will not translate. Understand.
So you're not going to give us the recipe on the jerk the chicken.
We'll talk about stuff there. What I'm saying is, don't come to me with foolishness. I understand you may have an opinion. Cool. We can debate your opinion, because I have one also. The difference is, mine is coming with some documents. And if you want to know the source of my documents, David Fisher is right there. I don't have to hide and talk.
People, I deal in records, in documents, in sworn affidavits. Everything I do is to complete the picture, the puzzle. And I spend an enormous amount of time researching to know what documents to request from the state. And as I was just saying to Kevin earlier, I received a massive dump of documents from the DPS, startling documents here 23, 24 years after the fact in January this year, stuff that startled me, that I didn't even see coming. And these are records from the General Counsel of the Texas Department of Public Safety. These are records that DPS officers, Texas Rangers, sheriff detectives collected and were turned over to the department as part of the Rangers investigation, and stuff that was in the files of Lisa Tanner and Mitzi Wolf. And I'm going to tell you, it's devastating stuff to the state. So, I deal in records, not conspiracies.
Hey,
Well,
David,
you know, the thing
David,
about
I have
it
a question. Can you send those transcripts from the Wichita Falls trial with Rodney to Kevin? Because I haven't seen those at all.
Yeah, nobody has. I mean, this was a trial in 1991. It was there were not supposed to be any records of the transcription of that trial or any of the evidence, but I have them.
What do you mean there was not supposed to be?
It was because he was acquitted. Jim, when a defendant is acquitted, they generally throw out the transcripts. You know, the court reporter's notes, everything.
Oh, okay.
Because found not guilty. Can't try him again.
Right.
Can't use it, not supposed to be able to use it against him.
Right.
So what I will do is I will email this to Kevin, and then Kevin can email it to y'all.
Okay.
Just email them.
Joy, you were saying something?
Yeah, the bottom line is this. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Everybody's going to have their own opinion concerning this trial, this case. Don't come at me with transcripts If you have something new, that you have discovered on your own, come talk to me about it, because I will make you look stupid, and I do not have any qualms in taking an arrogant person and humbling them by putting them in the fetal position and making them cry. Because I'm going to come at you.
Here comes a fantasy of mine.
I'm going to come at you with facts and things that I know firsthand, not hearsay, not what somebody told me.
Now, these are things you live.
That's right. Yeah. This is what I lived through. So coming at me with court transcripts isn't going to work. And you are entitled to your own opinion. However, you cannot, and you just can't. It doesn't work this way. You can't develop your own facts from your opinion.
Joy.
It doesn't work.
Say it one more time for me, that about what you said about Pat Barnett with Vivian Harbottle.
Pat Barnett walked around town for a good week bragging about what he did to Vivian Harbottle. Just bragging about it, about him taking the girl on the railroad tracks. I think that. I'm not going to say.
Well, and as I told Kevin earlier today, in the records from Harbottle, the guy who raped her, who she didn't know who it was, before the train came, they talked for a while, and smoked a cigarette together. Her rapist told her that he knew Vivian Harbottle's daughter, adult daughter. Well, Vivian Harbottle's adult daughter didn't know Rodney Reed, but she knew Pat Barnett.
Now,
and
correct me if I'm wrong, David, but didn't David Gord tell, it was either Pat Barnett or Parnell Barnett, his brother, told him, I know you did this, or I know Pat did this.
Well, right. I have an affidavit of a guy who was with Pat Barnett when they were walking to a friend's house when Vivian was walking down the tracks, and Pat broke off and started following Vivian, and his friend kept telling him, leave her alone and come on, and he wouldn't, and so the guy Pat was with went on to their friend's house, and the next morning the next day he heard about the rape and knew that it was Pat that did it. And David Board pulled Pat Barnett over when he was with a friend, and David Board told Pat that they knew he had raped Vivian, but David Board wanted Rodney for the crime.
Yes.
See, this was all maneuvering, all the way back then. And David Board has always been, a little sneak thief, always maneuvering. And see, I also gave Kevin some documents. See, there was a sex offender registered in Bastrop. That David Board signed the registered sex offender's card in October of '95.
Yeah.
That sex offender lived 2 blocks from the high school parking lot. He could see Stacy's truck from his back porch. David Board's report says that he pulled a computer on all, sex offenders in Bastrop. But he didn't to disclose this person's name. Why? Because he was a witness to a murder trial in Austin. He was their key witness in a gang murder. So David Board couldn't touch him. So he hid his file. Then in January '96, David Campos, one of the 2 detectives, in Stacy Stites' murder and disappearance, filed a sworn affidavit that this person was driving without a license on July 11th, 1990. Now, there's only a 2-year statute of limitation for traffic offenses. Right. And Pinnock prosecuted the guy. He's a black male. Pinnock prosecuted him. The judges, all knowing that it was illegal and a fraud, and it went on all the way through May of '96. This guy would have been the first prime suspect in Stacy's disappearance and later death. And yet he's never mentioned. Here's the deal. On July 11th, 1990, David Board arrested this guy for an alleged sexual assault, just like Carolyn Rivas, all the way down to the community, the whatever the social services agency alerted David Ward to this rape too. And this is a cousin of Rodney's.
Mm.
And the woman, just like Carolyn Rivas, refused to testify. David Ward was trying to blackmail her into bringing rape charges against Rodney's cousin in 1990. And David Ward racial profiles by dates. And so when I got into this file in 2003, when the family came to me for help, I noticed that repeatedly on July 11th, year after year, something came up in this guy's file. I mean, manufactured traffic tickets and warrants. And then they would go after him.
His birthday?
Huh? That was one of the other ways that David Ward racial profiled. Black males on their birthdays. He did it to Chris Aldridge. He arrested him on his birthday. And see, and this was one of the people that hung out with law enforcement long before Stacy's death. That David Ward goes, oh, they were parked outside of a convenience store, and a black male leaves, and he says, oh, his card's up this Wednesday, and then the pastor goes, what are you talking about?
That's his birthday.
It's his birthday, and he says, yeah, I still don't know. What do you mean? He says, oh, well, on black guys' birthdays, I park down the street and wait, because all black men, they get drunk on their birthdays, and sometime during the night, they'll leave to go get another six-pack, and I'll pull them over and charge them with a DWI. And when I heard that, I started looking, and sure enough, that's exactly what he does. That's exactly what he was doing.
Yep. Hey, listen.
So, anyway, we got to get out of here. We keep saying that, but we never do.
Yeah, we're doing it right now, though. I want to thank you guys. Thank you guys for the input. Thank you for the sounding board. Joy, Josie, Colleen, Julie, and Jeff. I know you guys were listening also. Much love. I truly appreciate it. Joy, thank you for calling in. Nozey, Josie, thank you.
There's one thing that I wanted to put out there to people that that are following this case.
Yeah.
I don't know this for a fact, but I did notice that it appears that Rodney Reed is being held in contempt.
He's been silent lately.
He just disappeared after he walked out of the courtroom when Fennell pointed the finger at Rodney and said he killed his fiancée.
Yeah.
Roderick got up and stormed out of the courtroom and then disappeared. He's never with Sandra Reed anymore. He's never in front of the cameras. Nobody has seen him since last Friday.
Roderick?
Yes.
He's either under house arrest or he's in a jail being held by the judge in contempt until this hearing is over.
I'll let you know.
So if anybody out there knows, let us know.
I'll let you know. I'll call Mama.
All right. Thank you, Joy.
I'll call Mama.
Yeah, real good then. Well, I'm signing off right now.
All right, David.
Y'all have a good night.
So Joy is gonna let us know what's happening with Roderick.
Yeah, I'll give Mama a call, or I'll call Ron tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Well, do you know his wife, Juana?
Yeah, I've got her number too.
Yes, she knows too.
All right.
Yeah.
So you guys, you get some rest. Take care. Tomorrow is looking to be another interesting day in this case. Y'all take care. Whew, what a 2 weeks this has been. Wow.
Much love and respect to all of you. Thank y'all for standing strong with my cousin. Lord knows he didn't do it. And what the state has done to him is beyond dirty.
Oh, yeah.
So just keep praying for him now.
Definitely. All right. Good night, Joy. Good night, Josie. Good night, Nozey. Colleen,
all right, y'all
much
have
love.
a good one.
All right. As I sign off here on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Real Talk Wednesday. You got the Real Talk tonight. Looking at before the Reed hearing closing. Closing arguments come up tomorrow and Friday. The prosecution is looking to introduce the penalty phase witnesses. They weren't supposed to be bringing them into play. Now they're bringing them into play. It looks like a desperate move to me, but that's my opinion. Fine if you want to dispute it. I don't care. Only thing that is important right now is we bring an innocent man home, and those responsible for him being incarcerated for over 2 decades be brought to justice also. And let the real killer get his due punishment. It's been long enough, and it's about time to call it a day.
It is time for us to make peace and stop the fighting. One love, one unity.
This is how I'm gonna wrap it up tonight. The sound of China Nicole. The track is called Let It Be for Justice. I do want to encourage y'all. Look out for members of your community. Your community is not just the development that you live in, but it spreads far and wide. So whether you walk, ride, or drive, take the bus, the plane, the boat, or the train, your people that you pass along the way, these are members of your community. Do something good for one of them today, because you never know who's going to do something good for you tomorrow. I do encourage you to be good. If you can't be good at it. My name is Kevin Stew. This is how I like to do it to you, for you, and with you every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern.
No matter what it costs, let it be for justice.
Whatever you do, let it be for justice.
Inequity, disparities, and violence. Oppression, racism.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world, from right here in South Florida. I bid you a good night.
We'll thrive prosperity. Marcus Garvey said it best, none but ourselves can free your minds. But if
Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune into the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.